Hi, this is Professor Favors with American Literature. So today's lecture is on Robert Frost's Mending Wall, and it's still part of the growth of modernism. So we're going to look at his particular poem and then apply some aspect of modernism. So this is American Literature, Robert Frost, Mending Wall, Growth of Modernism. This particular lecture is subject to fair use. So introducing introduction to modernism, reinventing the world. And here are some historical drivers for reinvention. So there is, at the beginning of the course, there is an overview of American literature with a few, with a separate lecture on the Modernist period, or modernism. And so you can watch that one. This here is an extension of that particular lecture. So historical drivers for reinvention. World War One was the biggest driver for modernism. It is considered the Great War. World War One was a European conflict with Great Britain, France, Russia, and Italy considered the Allied forces, and Germany and Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire considered the Central Powers. World War One was considered the first global war and first fully industrialized war, featuring shelling, machine guns, mustard gas, and advanced weaponry. Tensions rose when Adolf Hitler came to power in the 1930s, which led to World War II. Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor forced the United States to enter World War II, which resulted in American growth, immigration, industrialization, technological improvements, and development of modern cities. The Industrial Revolution gave rise to factories moving the country from agricultural roots to industrial based economy. The invention of the automobile and the assembly line in the early 1920s created an industry, spurred investments into infrastructure, and made personal travel available. So everyone started to get on the road. The Great Depression, though, of 1929 was a result of a market collapse, creating an economic downturn in which banks shut down, workers became unemployed, and droughts led to people becoming homeless looking for work. So now we have presidential intervention. Franklin Roosevelt was elected in 1932. He ushered in the New Deal, creating the Works Progress Administration, which used federal funds to put people to work, building America's infrastructure and provide employment for writers and artists through the Federal Writers Project. It also addressed poverty in the American South. Although federal funding addressed poverty, people began moving from agricultural areas into cities, marking the period as the Great Migration, in which Black Americans left the South to escape poverty and Jim Crow laws. They moved to cities such as Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Philadelphia, New York. This served as a major population shift in American history, resulting in cultural cross pollination, cultural revolutions such as the Harlem Renaissance, and development of creativity. So then we have literary considerations. Modernism is a catch-all for global movement. It responded to the wars of the period, which was characterized as writers feeling betrayed by the United States. So always remember that writers, the literary writers that you read, whoever it is that you read, they are usually responding to some sort of event that is going on in their lives and that's affecting the lives of other people. Literary writers and their works question the truths of the past, the status quo, and their disaffection with politics caused by World War One. It references, when you're thinking about poetry, there's a difference between high modernism and low modernism. Modernism focuses on the formal, examining how much America has changed and shifted and has become fragmented and disjointed, while low modernism experimented with form. So prose, both fiction and nonfiction, focused on writers, challenging form, style, and content. Many writers were explicit in their critical, in their political critiques. The Great Depression gave rise to communism, while the women's suffrage movement spurred early feminism. And then, of course, paperback books and magazines meant that writers were reaching a wider audience with radical messaging. All right, so you can find Introduction to Modernism, Robert Frost, Mending Wall with the link, the Britannica entry for Jim Crow laws, because it directly applies here. Then, of course, resources for Spanish American War, glossary of literary terms, point of view, Britannica entry for Plessy v. Ferguson, Separate Car Act, Emancipation Proclamation, and then the causes and effects of the American Civil War. So sometimes, again, we may have to remember certain particular aspects of a historical event, and especially if it applies to what's going on in a literary work. So, resources for Robert Frost, American Port. There's a Britannica entry for Robert Frost. He's American poet. There's also the Poetry Foundation, which you'll see a lot of Emily Dickinson's work, and then there is a biography. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening.